What is human trafficking? How prevalent is it? And what can we do to stop it? Perhaps my guest today, Julie Ryan, founder and executive director of Catalyst Ministries, can help us answer those questions. So, Julie, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here with you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. So let's talk first about what is Catalyst Ministries and what do you do there?
Catalyst Ministries is an organization, a nonprofit where we work specifically with women who have a background of human trafficking, as well as exploitation and extreme abuse.
Okay. Extreme abuse of what kind?
So that can look like domestic abuse. It can be anything where that person has been, traumatized in one way or another.
Okay. And maybe tell us, what is human trafficking? I hear the word thrown around all the time. I also hear sex trafficking, but what is human trafficking? Mm-hmm. Put it simply if you can.
Oh, sure. When we say human trafficking, we're referring to labor trafficking or sex trafficking. Sometimes it's both in the same individual. Sometimes it's one or the other. Our specific focus with Catalyst is with women who have a background of sex trafficking.
Okay.
And in that situation, the definition involves coercion. It involves deceit. It involves some specific things that have usually happened in that woman's life in order for her to end up in that situation.
Does trafficking, the word trafficking in this sense, does it mean like the exchange, the illegal exchange, almost like slavery type of exchange of people? Mm-hmm. Is that why they call it human trafficking? I think of the word traffic, I think of cars on the interstate.
Yes.
Am I even a little bit warm with my definition?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I think that this is referred to a modern day slavery situation. And so some people refer to trafficking in that way. So that is where the women are not free. So in one way or another, they're not free to leave, or they're not free with just even some of their basic human rights, those kinds of things.
How does a woman even get wrapped up in this world of trafficking? Slavery really is what it seems to be.
Mm-hmm. Paul, it's interesting. There are at least 25 different methodologies for human trafficking. And in the situations that we work with women, often there is a background of sexual abuse in the home as children, or it could be that they were involved with a foster care system and encountered abuse in that situation. So the statistics, the percentages are pretty high that someone that has those kinds of vulnerabilities have a higher risk of being trafficked. So it's somewhere around 2/3, 75%, something like that, of people that would end up that way have some earlier vulnerabilities that have happened within their own lives.
I see. So those certain things like being sexually abused in your younger years, or being abused in you said something about a foster home situation. These are gateways into the world of sex trafficking more often than not.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
That's true.
So what you said something about foster care or living in a foster home, is that a risky thing by what you're saying, to live in a foster home? Is that where a lot of these introductions into the world of sex trafficking happen?
That's what the statistics show, and I think because of the pattern of that, where there can be several homes and there can be abuse within that home. I think that's why that's kind of put in with that statistic. Of course, there are wonderful foster care situations, but really what we're talking about is that if there's been violence and abuse in a child's life when they're young, and there's some unhealthy patterns in that home, then they can be more vulnerable to violence and those kinds of things, which is what trafficking ends up being. They can be more vulnerable because they haven't maybe had a good situation with their father or with other men, and that's one thing that comes into play.
Okay. Are women much more represented in the world of those who are sex trafficked than men?
Definitely.
Got any numbers on that, maybe?
I do. Yeah. Conservative numbers would be 80% are women. The percentage, so the rest would be men, of course. And I think, we can go into that if you want to, of why that might be. But that's definitely a much higher percentage, much higher prevalence for women.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. This is pirate radio, as I like to say. This is a podcast. Anything goes. We can talk about whatever we want. So
Sure.
Why are women more represented than men in this problem?
What we're talking about here is that this is a situation where sex is being sold, and somebody is profiting from that, and that's the most basic way I can probably share it with you right now is sex is being sold, someone's profiting. It's not the woman, right? In a trafficking situation, she may receive something, she may receive tips, or something like that, but she's definitely not the winner in that situation. And there's someone that's profiting. Maybe that's a pimp. It's kind of known as a pimp or recruiter, that kind of thing. And a woman or a girl can be sold many times in a day, maybe even 10 times in a day. And so if we're going to compare this with drug trafficking, which sometimes these two are compared and sometimes they're linked, you can sell a drug once and that's it, right? So this definitely has a financial motivation for those who are involved in the recruiting of women and in this slavery situation. So the statistics again are staggering. Really, it's an industry, if you want to call it that. It's a criminal industry that has $150 billion a year that comes in through this industry. So
you said 150 billion?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like when you said drug trafficking, it's like the illegal sale and distribution of X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. So drugs and women for sex. That's really crazy. You said 10 times in a day? Mm-hmm. What's maybe the average age of these people? I'm just curious, these women.
Sadly, it's 13.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's average. That means there's often
younger.
Younger.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Have you worked with this age of women? I'm sure you have.
I'm familiar with these situations for sure. Catalyst Ministries, our criteria is that we specifically provide services and help and support for women who are 18 and up. So we focus our ministry is focused on adults, and so we don't work with children, in a focused way, but I'm very aware that that's happening.
Does anyone around here work with the younger age group?
There are organizations throughout the country that have a focus on children, for sure. So in terms of specifically women that are children, I'd have to just do a little bit more research, but I know that there are some in Illinois, yes.
Okay, well, it sounds like the bulk of women who suffer from abuse in the world of sex trafficking are 13-year-old girls. But you work with 18 and older. Has your organization, Catalyst Ministries, ever considered expanding the age group with which it works with?
We have. That was something we considered when we started, and we were founded in 2014. And in looking at all these kinds of details and what was the prevalence and what was our capacity at the time and those kinds of things, there's a certain, licensing and those kinds of things would be different if you're working with minors for sure, and quite a bit more involved. That's something that we haven't taken that step at this point because we've got our hands full with what we're doing with the population that we work with. But we'll see. We'll see how God leads us, really.
Right. And I should clarify also, I'm not saying, what are you guys doing? You should do more. I hate when people say that because you're already doing so much good. And then people choose to get upset about you're not doing the rest of it or like what else exists. Come on. I know you're one organization. You have a capacity. You have a budget and you're doing what you can. And licensing and the logistics and the laws surrounding this thing, I'm sure it can be a headache. So I just want to be clear. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
And it's really incredible work. You mentioned God. You want to see where God leads you.
Right.
Is this an unapologetically Christian organization?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So we believe that that God, Jesus Christ, is actually the catalyst. So we have this name, Catalyst Ministries, and a catalyst is a change agent. It's actually a chemistry scientific term, and just in thinking and praying about this ministry back in 2013 and around that time, I believe that God gave us this name. And with this kind of work where you're seeing women who have complex trauma and have endured so much before they would come to a situation where they would come and get some help through an organization like Catalyst, we knew that without God's help, it's really impossible to have that kind of healing and transformation and those kinds of things that need to happen inside of a person. And so we chose the name Catalyst and really believe that God is the one that really changes a heart and a life. And he's the one that really can give a person hope and healing, in terms of all the things that are needed. And I think it's true for all of us, actually. But especially for those that have endured so much. We wanted something that was sustainable. We wanted something that would be effective and not just, let's just put some services together and provide these things. We wanted to really be in a situation where we could help offer them, true hope and something that would be lasting.
Traditional, modern, or rustic, whatever your home interior vision may be, you can count on the professionals here at Gravel Lane Design Studio to make it a reality.
From bathrooms and kitchens to laundry rooms and mudrooms, our talented team of designers specializes in custom designs, including Amish-made cabinetry, countertops, showers, closets, and shelving that embody your personal style, creating the space you desire with the function you require.
Based out of Eureka, Illinois, Gravel Lane is a locally owned business that takes pride in providing you with a delightful, family-like experience.
Give us a call and we'll pair you with one of our expert designers that will meet with you to discuss your vision.
Together, we will view your space and take measurements, explore materials and samples, and look over personalized digital renderings so you can see it for yourself.
And only once you see a design that you truly love will we begin building your dream room.
Turn your home's interior from ordinary to extraordinary when you call Gravel Lane Design at 309-383-0090
or send us a message through our website at gravellanedesign.com.
Gravel Lane Design Studio. Quality craftsmanship.
Believe what you want, everyone believe what you want about God, but on this show alone, and I haven't handpicked people that have God in their stories, but when I listen to people who have overcome incredible adversity. I had a young man who's my age who found himself, addicted to heroin and meth, I believe, or heroin and meth. And he was homeless. He was in a dumpster one day, and he managed to turn his life around in a matter of months because of God. He called out to God. Something moved in his heart, and then it was just a chain of events. And now he has a family, and he's actually very successful. And And anyway, there's a bunch of stories like that on this show, and so far, always, it's involved God in some incredible way. So, again, believe what you want to believe, but this is at least a coincidence among these inspiring stories that should give you pause. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. So, what might, tone switch here from inspiring to a little darker, what might a day in the life of one of these girls when they're in the thick of things in the world of sex trafficking, what might a day in their life look like?
Yes. Oh, I'd be glad to share that. We actually have a video. Maybe at some point I can share that with you, Paul, from one of our graduates who kind of shares that exact thing about what her life was like before and before she came to Catalyst. So she had a difficult life, family situation growing up. She, however, was an athlete in high school and planning on college and all those kinds of things. And then she got involved with a man that kind of made her some promises that I think she basically kind of fell in love with him and made her promises that he didn't keep. And she, through that process, became addicted herself. And then, she was in such a vulnerable situation in terms of, then she was on the streets. Her life just changed so much, and she was vulnerable to just being exploited sexually, physically, and her addiction was such a factor in that. So I would say, she was sleeping wherever she could. She would sleep in a dumpster kind of thing or in a abandoned building. And when someone's in that situation, they're just really vulnerable and at risk for more exploitation because there are people that'll come along and take advantage of that for their own gain sometimes. So I would say that sometimes, but not always, addiction is a part of that story. Sometimes it happens within the trafficking situation where the trafficker introduces that in order to cause that woman to become more dependent on him and maybe more compliant and things like that. And
continue. I'm so sorry.
No problem. And so I would say if I was going to just say what are commonalities in that life, it would be the abuse at a young age, like I mentioned, and then usually a risky relationship that woman enters into. And she enters into it partly because she has some violence and abuse normalized in her own mind because of what she's experienced before. So that's one of the reasons that's a link in terms of higher percentage of people being trafficked that have been abused in their childhood years, So if she enters into that relationship, and maybe she's met this person through Facebook, that's one of the main things that are used for recruitment, Facebook, social media, that kind of thing, where someone's basically pretending to be a boyfriend and he's promising her great things. Maybe he's very charming. And she enters into that relationship thinking one thing and wanting security and wanting the things that she didn't maybe get at home. And he can manipulate that situation very quickly so that then he is he's trafficking her. And he's making money from pictures that are being put on the internet, for example, or actively putting her into situations like an escort service or that kind of thing. He's the one that's in charge then. Usually he's then housing her and maybe some other women as well. And he is calling all the shots and threatening her, even though there's that charming boyfriend thing. There can be just a flip in that switch once it's obvious that what he's doing is trafficking her. And then she really is in a dangerous situation at that point. So that's kind of what it can look like, and that can last a short time. It can last 20 years, and it's just a very risky life then, where she's put in situations where she can be harmed easily, and he's not there. He's not protecting her. He's looking for that money that is coming into him,
Wow. Thank you for painting that so clearly. That is eye-opening. And it's so frightening because the way you tell it, it sounds like anyone could actually fall for that.
Absolutely.
You just find yourself in a particularly lonely situation. Someone who's good looking on Facebook or appears to be good looking reaches out to you, says nice things, makes these promises. You could fall for that. A young girl could fall for that big time.
Absolutely.
And then you could follow up with, let's meet up. Maybe takes you out to dinner. I don't know. A million things could happen. But does this happen in Bloomington, do you think?
Oh, it definitely does.
Really?
I'm sorry to say, yes.
This is pimping, is it not? I wish there was a different word. That word has developed a weird connotation. It's used in music. It's almost a positive thing sometimes. Like, you get girls, you're a pimp, It's a horrible term, though. You're a monster if you're a pimp.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So that happens here.
It does. And, that can happen through a high school situation. It can happen. There can be a fellow high school student who is actually recruiting girls. It can be a girl that is doing that, not only men or boys. Sometimes a girl can be kind of used in that way. So if a recruiter or a pimp has a girl that he's already recruited, sometimes he can use one of them to kind of sort of build that friendship with another girl, and then kind of bringing her along in that way. So it can look different ways, but definitely in our country, this is one of the most common ways that this happens, and can happen in high school, it can happen college, on a college campus or whatever. And I think what I would say is that this isn't something that we want to give people fear, but just awareness. And so that, girls, when they're in this kind of situation and they're meeting someone, that there's a lot of things that they need to verify, and to not let themselves be in a situation where they're in danger or where they're isolated, that kind of thing. So it can look different in different countries, honestly. This is something that's pretty common here, though, as far as how that happens.
Wow. And as you're saying this, things are coming to my mind. This is going to sound strange. So like on TikTok, for example, it's not a trend, I wouldn't say yet, but it's not exactly uncommon. Girls will post, and it is girls. I don't mean to sound like a sexist anything, but it's always girls on TikTok. They will post a thing about, a message they got, or, this old man said this to me, and there's fetishes, right? There's this one oddly common fetish, it seems, is like, he paid me for pictures of my feet. And then, a girl's like, oh, it's just my feet. And she'll, get to $100 for sending one picture. Although that seems harmless to her. And I want to say I've talked to people in person, like some girls have joked about that as well. Or, similar types of pictures being sent. Once you start exchanging intimate pictures that are sexual or sexually arousing, is that kind of like a way in the door? Now you're in the world of exchanging your body in some way, shape, or form for money. Could that be dangerous?
I think that, interacting with someone that you don't know at all, and you don't know their background, you don't know what they're really seeking. I know it's very common, and it's kind of our social media world, but let's just say that is how this kind of thing happens. That is one of the main ways, and so there need to be safeguards, in our own selves and the way that we interact with people, and also just not kind of being naive to the fact that there are predators, that's one of the places that they're looking for people. So whether it's their feet or whether it's,
pardon my weird
relationship.
example, but it's common.
Yeah.
More common than you probably think. If you're not on TikTok, I mean, it's like, it's so strange.
Fairbury Furniture is Central Illinois' premier furniture store. This family-owned business offers a vast selection of premium furniture items from all of your favorite brands, including Sealy, Best Home Furnishings, Leather Italia, Tempur-Pedic, and Ashley, just to name a few. And right next door to their gorgeous 7,000 square foot furniture showroom, you will find the Fairbury Furniture Mattress Store, home to all of the latest and greatest mattresses in any and all sizes. Also inside Fairbury Furniture is the popular WC Market, a beloved shop that offers an ever-changing selection of unique gifts and fashionable home decor. So make your home interior beautiful, comfortable, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture.
I've had people on that have been immersed, like Rachel Timothy, and so I did a lot of research on this topic, and that's common. This exchange of pictures, often it's shirtless picture, naked picture or something, but a great introduction is feet, as strange as that is, just because it seems harmless, and all these girls are like, okay, that's harmless. It's not, a picture of my breasts or anything like that. So, but it's a way in the door, like you're kind of saying.
Yes, I think it is.
I kind of cut you off there, though. Can you continue?
Let's see. Where was I going there? I think it's just important for people to be aware, and young girls to be aware that that even though some of these things can seem harmless, and sort of entering into a relationship that way, it's very intentional on the other side. So there's a definite way that people who are doing this are trying to groom that person. They have specific things that they're trying to do to bring her into a place of trust, and it isn't for the young woman's gain, right? It's for that pimp's benefit. And so I think there's just a definite caution there that we have to exercise.
And you said that individually we should have safeguards to prevent the likelihood of us getting immersed in this world or getting sucked into this world. What do those safeguards look like? What's your advice to individuals to protect themselves from being wrapped up in this mess?
I think if you have a gut feeling that something just doesn't feel right, I think it's really good to pay attention to that. And so it's a little hard to define that exactly, but in some of the situations that I know of, there was someone that was maybe at a hard place in their life, and maybe they were lonely, maybe they felt isolated, and in comes Mr. Wonderful to try to, basically tell them everything that they would want to hear. And they are drawn into that situation. And usually he will try to isolate them from their family and their support system eventually. Because if you have a family and friends that are going to notice this, he's not going to want that, Sometimes he's going to be eventually asking them to move with him somewhere, and it could be something that seems really promising even, like there's a great job for you, or I know of someone who really had an interest in music and kind of making it in the music world, and this then was promised to her that if we go here to this place, I know somebody that's going to really help your dreams to come true, kind of thing. And it's something that you want to hear, so it's easy to believe it. But I just think you just have to test all those things carefully and go slowly in this situation, not let yourself be pulled into this, because sometimes that can be a slower process, sometimes it can be quick. And in a particular individual that I know of that was trafficked in the Dallas area, it was within a few days that she was kind of recruited, and he wanted her to live in his apartment with him. And then, within a few days after that, he was trafficking her and selling her for sex on kind of one of the main tracks, they call it, in the Dallas area. And so it can vary,
All right. You're definitely going to be alarming some people. Oh, were you going to say something? I apologize. No. Are you sure?
I can always say more, but...
Okay. Well, feel free to say whatever you want. I apologize. I jump in when there's like a second or more of silence, so I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was just going to ask, you're probably making parents' ears perk up as you're saying this. Mm-hmm. What can parents do to help safeguard their children, especially their daughters, from being tricked into, again, being sucked into this world?
Mm-hmm. I know that people can be alarmed for sure, and parents can be alarmed at this kind of thing. I think that what we want to do and what I want to do is help raise awareness about some of the signs, that people can be kind of looking for and aware of. And actually with Catalyst Ministries, we have 3 main things that we do and that we focus our energies on. And I'll just share that with you. The first is raise awareness. So we work in the communities to share about the reality of this issue of human trafficking. So we do that in groups or at fundraisers or through our own website. Catalystministries.net is where you can find us. All kinds of ways that we raise awareness. We also do trainings like for law enforcement and medical professionals and people that would come into contact with these situations. The second thing is to rescue. So we work with partnerships around the country to help rescue women who are in this situation of violence. And so the third thing is restoration. And that's where we invite women into a safe living situation for housing and all kinds of different services where they can receive healing. They can live there for up to 2 years in this safe home. This is called Catalyst Farms, and we have this here in Central Illinois and soon to have one in the Dallas area. So that's a place where women can really be restored and receive the myriad of things that they're going to need. So it's a real holistic type of program, Christ-centered. So just to let you know that, I just kind of wanted to share that backstory a little bit.
That's kind of the process you go through with the women that come to you, and that's how you help them.
Exactly.
Is that farm in an undisclosed location, I assume?
Absolutely, yes.
Beautiful.
Right, it is. But we have a need for volunteers, and we have a need for those that would want to invest financially in our work, and also those that want to pray. So really all that can be found on our website at catalystministries.net, where if someone's interested in getting involved in some way, or they just want to learn more, or have us speak to their group, or whatever it might be. So kind of going back to your thoughts on those parents, and what are they hearing, what are they thinking? desire isn't to increase fear, for people, but just really awareness. And I think when there's an isolation of a daughter, when she's being more and more isolated with this individual, I think there are things that kind of go off in your mind that can be sort of a gut feeling that something just doesn't seem right here. And I think that's where conversation with your child is very important, or even if it's an adult, just having those open conversations and maybe trying to include that individual in family things so that it's not that he's sort of pulling her away, because that would be, if it's a recruitment situation, that would be his desire. Mm-hmm. And so I think that relationship and communication with your child is really essential.
Well, you're touching on some psychological things really well right now. One of them being that a child's isolation from their family is never really a good thing, especially in the age of the internet, because especially if they have a computer in their room, oh, good heavens, they could be on there all night looking at anything they want. They could be erasing their browser history. Parents will never know a thing. And nothing good happens when someone isolates themselves. You look at even school shooters. One thing most of them have in common is that they recede, they become reclusive. They lose their friends and they stay in their basement, and then their dark thoughts come up and no one's around to tell them that they're crazy, you know? And again, no one's around to tell you that, hey, this is sketchy. This person, you should not trust them if they don't even know. So, goodness, I don't have kids or anything, but when I have kids, we're going to be freaking hanging out a lot because I don't want anything going on literally behind closed doors.
Yes.
So communicating with your kids is a good idea, knowing what they're up to. And anything else?
I think that's great. I think even, sharing that this is something that's a reality. So you can share that with your daughter without scaring her or anything, but just to simply say this, make them aware of trafficking, or maybe bring them to something where an event where this is being discussed, something like that. Here in the community, we have, regular opportunities where people can come and learn more. This is something that maybe if a mother wants to come with her teenage daughter, so she's also becoming more aware and can kind of then protect herself. And she can see those signs that she might not realize would be warnings in a way that somebody's communicating with her. We have a dinner that's coming up on September 15th. It's called Be a Catalyst Dinner. There'll be a beautiful venue just outside of town, and that'll be a time we'll have a speaker that'll be sharing on these kinds of things, as well as it's a fundraiser for us. We may have a survivor speaking as well, and just a kind of the whole night is built around helping people to know more of what's going on, just so that they can arm themselves. So it's just it's a way to protect, and it doesn't have to be something that is fearful, because you can push away from things that might harm you.
Since 1950, Dave's Supermarket in Fairbury has been wowing customers throughout Central Illinois with their unmatched customer service, delectable deli market, beloved grocery carryout service, and many other fortes, which is why they've earned hundreds of 5-star reviews online. Dave's 3rd Street Deli has plenty of seating and is a destination place to meet your family and friends for good food, fun, and fellowship. Not only is their home-style fried chicken here the best around, but you can also enjoy free coffee and 50-cent ice cream every single day. And be sure to check out their Old World Bakery while you're here, where freshly baked goods are prepared every morning. You'll find hundreds of unique and signature items here at Dave's that you won't find anywhere else, like their famous potato salad, ham loaf, and canned meats, just to name a few. Come experience this revered location that puts the super in supermarket when you shop at Dave's in Fairbury, Illinois, wowing the customer for over 70 years.
And like you said, first step one, build awareness, because it's hard to fight against something and protect yourself against something that you can't even see.
Exactly.
And I just want to say, I mean, the average age of people that listen to the show, I believe, is 39. So these are parents galore. And take it from me. I mean, I'm on social media all the time. Not too long ago, I was in high school, and kids get messages. Even me, I can't imagine what it's like for a young girl in high school. You get weird Facebook messages from fake profiles all day long saying, "Hello, gorgeous. How are you? Hello, beautiful. How are you? Is this, Paul Garcia? How are you?" And it's like, these are traps. And luckily, I mean, this happens to me, and I was a boy. And even sometimes it happens now. As you get older, it happens a little less often because they kind of figure you're less naive and less susceptible, a less easy catch, I should say.
Yes.
But I want to say to parents, this is, you say what you want, but hey, talk to your kids about the messages they receive, really, because I guarantee you they're getting weird ones. And it's doing no one a service to not talk about it. Talk about the darn things. That's what I do on this show. You talk about the weird taboo things because those are often the most important, I think.
Yes, absolutely. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so true, Paul. And it's, bring it out in the open. Don't be afraid to be involved in conversations with them. And even if they, at the moment, may not seem receptive, you are equipping them. You are helping them to build boundaries and safeguards around themselves. And then when they go to college or whatever it is, or they have someone that's interacting with them on Facebook or on TikTok, whatever, they may remember that conversation, or they may remember that event that you took them to where they heard more, heard from a survivor, and they heard things that were like, oh, this is what happened to her. This is how this person was talking to her. This is what so-and-so was doing and saying last week in our conversation. And I think it just turns the lights on. This kind of thing thrives in the darkness. And so to turn the lights on for those that we love is a loving thing to do, right? Oh, that's a beautiful analogy. I love that. It's like things in the dark, mold in the dark in the moist places when no one's messing with it, no one's shining light on it, no sunlight's touching it. That's when mold grows. And by the time you finally show some light to it, it might be a little hard to handle. So burn it out now, kill it now. Put the light on it now. And you talked about, say the things to your kids even if they don't seem to be receptive. That's beautiful. And that's true, because there are things that I remember my dad telling me that were hugely important that I remember daily now that I probably look like this when he was telling them to me. But I remember them. They still are hitting the ears. We still hear it, even if we want to make it seem like we don't care, and we probably don't care in the moment, but still say the stuff. Absolutely. That's kind of that tough love thing that really is loving them, Right. That's what love looks like. People got it all wrong. They think love is... I just had a priest on the other day, Father Adam Kesserek. I don't know how to say his last name, but he spoke about love, and too often do we confuse niceness for love and affirming for love. Like, oh, you're perfect just the way you are. Nothing needs to change. That's not love. Love is willing and wanting the good of another person, even if that's uncomfortable, even if that's a sacrifice to yourself. Yes. It's genuinely wanting the good for the other person. And sometimes you have to set them straight and say things that they don't love hearing. Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And this would definitely fall in that category, Right. I think... Again, not to cause fear or alarm, but this is real, and that pimp is relying on the idea that mom and dad won't get involved, or they won't ask those questions, and that's helpful to them, right? But one statistic that is hard to hear, but again brings in the reality of the dangerous situation that can happen when a girl is recruited into this. The average life expectancy for a person when they come into a trafficking situation is only 7 years. So, that's very hard to hear, I think. But again, tough love, it's worth it, right? she's completely vulnerable when she's in that, and he can do whatever he wants to her.
So are you saying that when someone does find themselves immersed in the world of sex trafficking, usually they'll die after 7 years?
That's the average, yes.
On average, they'll die 7 years into the game. Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard that before. And you spoke earlier about a lot of the time these women they'll become addicted. What did you mean by that? Did you mean that their pimp will supply them with something like heroin, and then they'll get addicted, and then they'll keep coming back and be like, hey, I had sex with these guys. Here's your money. Can I have my heroin? Will it be that type of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, so heroin, whatever addictive drug that might be, meth, cocaine, whatever it is. And so it's what he's wanting to do, or she, usually a he, but sometimes not, is creating that dependency. It's one more thing that kind of ties that person to him. And so it's something that with the women that we work with, I'd say the majority of them come with some type of addiction because of that. And so that's one of the ways that we work with them. And that's one of the ways that it's a long-term program. It's not just a month or a week. It's not like that. We're looking for a sustainable, long-term help for them.
Do these women ever find that they are in love with their pimp despite how abusive they are? Do they develop some kind of connection that's hard to break? Because by the sound of it, they would associate their pimp with protection, food, housing. I mean, all these things that you could associate with someone who really cares about you. It sounds like a weird psychological trip, but do they ever find that they have difficulty in emotionally separating themselves from their pimp?
Yes, definitely. That's another part of the process, and this is a process. So it is similar to a brainwashing kind of thing in that way, where it is a very mentally, emotionally confusing situation for the women, because they can find that if they do a certain thing one day, he's taking her out for dinner, or he's treating her well, or saying, you're my favorite one, or whatever it is. The next day she might do the same thing and he beats her. So there isn't really a consistency. There isn't a security, but she's always hoping, She kind of hangs on to that hope. And usually there's certain promises that he's making, and it could be something like, you just need to help us out financially right now. We're going to eventually get married and get a house together, or we're going to build this business together, and you're going to be part of that. I really need you to be involved. But for now, I just need you to help, just go out, and I'm going to have you meet with these guys, or whatever it could be. It could be escort. It could be kind of streets. It could be whatever it looks like. You're just going to be basically helping the family kind of thing. And so she kind of develops this maybe loyalty to that sort of vision. And, it's all deception, right? But he's preying on some of her desires, for security, or for marriage, or for a home. So to answer your question, definitely there's a dependency. There can be kind of a, I love him, he loves me kind of thing, even though she still sees these things that don't seem consistent with that. Why would he beat me? Why would he make me do this or that? But then she rationalizes it. So part of what we work with our residents is all these different things to help with that. And so they would receive therapy every week. They would each have their own trauma therapist that's helping them unravel these lies and these confusing messages that are in their heads. And there's something that we use that's called Ending the Game. That's a curriculum that's created by survivors. And that's something that kind of in their group time that they'd be going through those kinds of things. So there's a 4-phase program in that 2 years where the women are, receiving everything that they need as much as what we can give them to help them kind of get out of those unhealthy places.
Wow. Very interesting to hear this type of insight. I've never heard this before, but you're painting it so clearly. It's obvious that you've worked closely with these women who have come from these situations, because by the way you're explaining it, I just can't believe how someone could fall for it. Mm-hmm. I can't believe how someone would fall for it. It's so obvious that someone could. And that's what's so scary. When you paint it like that, and I put myself in that young woman's shoes, I'm like, hey, that might sound pretty good, actually. Yes. So, my goodness, that's amazing. And you talk about, you rescue these women. How do you rescue them? Do you go out and look for them with a detective, and then you find them and say, hey, come with us? Or do they come to you? How do they come to you? Tell me about that.
Yes. So we have quite a few different ways that happens, Paul. And one is that sometimes they find us. This is newer, but this is starting to happen where they find us, they find our website, and they contact us and say, I'm in this situation. Can you help me? I'm looking for a program, that kind of thing. So sometimes that happens. Probably the most common would be a referral from another agency that does this kind of work, or maybe they do something a little different, but they know what we do, which is long-term residential care for survivors of human trafficking. And so someone else may be in California who is aware of Catalyst, and what they do is kind of crisis rescue situations where somebody can come into their program for maybe a week, and they're just kind of helping them get off the streets and that kind of thing. But then after that week, they need something more, or they're going to just end up right back where they are. So sometimes we'll receive a referral from someone like that. Over time, we're in our 8th year right now. So over time, we've developed some relationships with agencies around the country and even around the world. We have 2 global partnerships. So one is in Southeast Asia and one is in the Middle East. Those are some of the ways that we receive kind of that referral. Another one is that we're part of a national network of residential care facilities, and so weekly we receive emails of people that might be a candidate, and so we look for who can we help the best and what's our capacity, at any given time. And if somebody is a fit, and we see that we have capacity, we have a bed available, that kind of thing, then we'll begin that intake process with them and work towards basically a move-in date for them. So we have a system and a process, and it's working well, I feel like.
Beautiful. And like I've said, this is incredibly meaningful work you're doing. And though, that some of what you're saying is controversial, as surprising as that may be. There's actually, have you ever heard of OnlyFans?
I'm not sure.
It's an app where women, this is usually what it's used for, they can sexualize themselves and people pay money for it. Basically, they pay for exclusive access to their videos, and there's some prominent names on the app. And anyway, there's a lot of people that say to scold them for that. Like you might be saying that it's risky to engage in exchanging sexual images for money, and saying that that's a gateway into something much worse.
Yes.
To say that might be, what's the word, misogynistic maybe, or hating on women's sexuality and their sexual freedom. What do you say to that? Because there's actually a lot of people that might think that you're being a little misogynistic or something along those lines. Or
Yes, interesting. Of course we have freedom of speech, right? So, people are going to do and say what they want to, and we're going to have people that are going to have different opinions on what we do at Catalyst Ministries, how we do it, what our focus is, those kinds of things. But we feel like this is such an urgent need and such an important need. We care about the worth of those women so much that we just don't have time, honestly, to try to please everyone. This is what we do. This is what we feel called to do. And love to talk to anybody that wants to talk about that, but we're not trying to be all things to all people. We don't feel like that's what we're supposed to do. So.
Right. No matter how noble the cause, no matter how wonderful the organization, there will always be trolls around trying to cut you down. And Julie, we've talked about what trafficking is, how prevalent it is. Now, what can we, me, not you, you're already doing your part, but what can people like me do to help stop it?
I love that question. Absolutely. There are usually three things that I say in answer to that. And first of all, I want to say that there are things that you and all of us can do. And that's something when I first was learning about this issue and was a little bit overwhelmed. And I would imagine that some people, especially if they're hearing some of this for the first time, they're a little overwhelmed maybe by it and kind of like, what in the world could I do? And what I've seen in these past 8 years is that we really can make a difference. And especially together, we can do a lot more. And so those three things would be volunteer with us. There are so many different ways that people can be involved, and maybe that's in our office. We have an office in Bloomington. We need an office manager right now, for example. There's a communications team that has social media and other things that they do. So if somebody is creative in that way or likes to write, those are opportunities to be a part of that communications team. We do events. We need help with people that want to help create beautiful events. And with those events comes the awareness piece. So that's why we do events mainly. So with volunteering, there's also opportunities to volunteer directly with the women. And in that case, you'd go through special training and a background check and all those things, and we'd make sure it's a good fit for everyone. But for example, the women who are residents in our program, they have different appointments they need to go to. So we have people that help drive them to those appointments and people that mentor them. All kinds of things. We have a boutique for gently used clothing for the women, and so we need a boutique coordinator. There's so many things. We have a property that needs maintenance and help, and so we have some men that come and they mow a couple times a month, and so it just goes on and on and on, Paul.
Could a lawn care company come do that and then say that they do that, and then maybe it'd be even some good publicity for them?
Oh, absolutely.
Someone who's watching this knows I'm thinking of their business, but okay, interesting.
Absolutely. There's so many things. And so we're just better together. Everyone has a gift or expertise that they can offer. And almost always there's a way for that to be a help, with this ministry. So we have volunteer information nights where people can come and just learn more and see where they might be able to plug in. So that's all, again, it's all on our website at catalystministries.net. And so first thing, volunteering. Second, financial partnerships. So we function 100% through donations. So those would be partnerships with churches or with businesses, with individuals, those kinds of things. And so, of course, to run a home, to run an office, to do all the things we do, we need dollars, of course, just like everyone else. And so we also need that money to help, of course, serve the women. And so that's one very important way. An impact donor is somebody that gives $30 a month or more a month in a recurring type donation. So that's very helpful for us. And then the last thing is prayer. So we really believe in the power of prayer. And so to pray for Catalyst is such a huge help to us. And we gather together once a month with people in the community to do that together. So that's called Global Prayer Night, and it's on the fourth Tuesday of every month at our office at, I believe it's 5 o'clock.
Beautiful. Awesome. There's plenty of ways to help. Finances, volunteer, prayer.
Exactly.
Great. And this is what a great organization you founded and you're the executive director of. You're really doing great work, Julie, and I really appreciate your conversation, our conversation today. I think it was really powerful and really enlightening, and I think it's important that people hear it. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for doing what you're doing. And before we wrap this thing up, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Really, I want to thank you, Paul. Thank you for inviting me on, and thank you for what you're doing. And I just appreciate the opportunity to share more about Catalyst. And so what a huge blessing. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to The Paul Garcia Show. That was Julie Ryan. God bless, and have a great week.